10-second countdown.
Ron?
What's up, Jim? How are you?
I'm good, man. How are you? How are you? I got too much noise now. I can't hear.
You're live, Jim. That's you here,
Okay.
and we're recording here.
Do I need to move this plant? Because that's pretty
Hey everybody,
low.
welcome back to the Jim Feist Pro Football Handicapping Show here on the patio at Dom DeMarco's Pizzeria and Wine Bar, where the good times roll and the wine flows. Speaking of wine, after the show, stick around. We're going to give away, once again, bottles of wine complimentary of J-Lore Winery. First, before we get to the panel, let me introduce the gentleman whose face and name is on the show. Jim Feist, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Just had a great pizza, nice cup of coffee.
Food is outstanding here, isn't it?
The food here is amazing. If you don't, you just forget about the show. Just come here and eat. I'm telling you.
And not only that,
Awesome.
it's the best happy hour in town. It's not like 5 to 6 or 5 to 8. It's 2 to 6, Monday through Friday. 50% off all pizzas from 2 to 4. And wine is half off glasses and bottles from 2 until 6 o'clock. That's 4 hours of wine, 2 hours of pizza.
Not to mention the selection is amazing.
It is. Then you have $11 items with Philly fries and eggplant pizzettes. Have you had those?
I have not.
You have to try those.
Okay.
Fried eggplants with this marinara sauce and a ricotta cheese on top. It is to die for. And I'm not a big eggplant fan, but you got to try the eggplant pizzettes.
We'll do it.
How's your eyes? Last time we talked, you had to go for eyes.
I have a follow-up tomorrow to see what's going on, but it's better than it was a week ago. A week ago it was actually hard to do the show because it kept flashing. Like having a flashlight in your eye. It just boom, bling.
Well, I have no vision in my left, so you at least had a flash.
Well, that's true. You had that problem. Yeah.
That's right. Let's introduce a couple guys on our panel today. One is with us a couple weeks ago. He began by working in the sports book at the Barbary Coast. And then later on, I don't know if you knew this, Jim, but he worked with Ray Charles to develop a slot machine for him and Jeff Whitelaw. Jeff, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
You worked with Ray Charles.
Yeah, for a few years. We developed a slot machine, a doll, and we did a few things with commercials with him, with Powerball and the lotteries.
And joining us for the first time, a very experienced veteran sportscaster with Sports X Radio. He even worked with former NFL veteran Bob Golick. Welcome, Kenny Thompson.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it to be here with the legend, Jim Feist. It's an honor, no question about it. And the food here, Albert Scallion, are you kidding me? The pizza here is phenomenal. I grew up in Jersey. My dad was from Brooklyn. And so we know pizza. And this place is top of the line.
Have you been to DeFaris?
No.
Never been to the original DeFaris, but this is just like it from what I understand. So let's get into it. I'm going to start with you and then we'll go down the line. Speaking of line, let's go with the Lions. They win 52-6. Tell me about the acquisition of Zarius Smith and the impact he's had. And then on top of that, maybe Kenny, for you, the injury to the linebacker Alex Anzalone, who's supposed to miss 6 to 8 weeks with a broken forearm. What's that impact going to be? Tell me how has the acquisition of Zadarius Smith been?
Well, when you win 52-6 or whatever it was, it's like you can play with half your players. That was not even a game. Going forward, this team is now, people are saying it's the best team in football. We're going to see when we get to the Super Bowl, and also Angeloni losing that. It remains to be seen what impact these injuries are going to have on this team going forward. But they have the chemistry, they have the offense, they can run the ball. Goff plays really well under this tutelage. Very dangerous. I think the only team in the NFC that looks like, in my opinion, that could be competitive to say they're the better team or the equal to in the NFC would be maybe the Eagles, because not because I love the coach or anything, but they do run the ball very well. And when you can run the ball the way the Eagles can run the ball, you can become very dangerous because you're controlling the game. And it's like when you see the great offense for the Bengals, they can get the lead, they can score, they can score like in 2 seconds, but they can't control the game because they can't run the ball. Mm-hmm. So and then it depends on their defense, and their defense sucks. And they give up. It's like the old days with Dan Fouts. They could score 45 and give up 46.
Yeah. Jeff, I'm going to come to you in just a second about the line for this coming week when they go to Indy. But Kenny, for you, 2 now key injuries to this Lions defense. How impact is this going to be?
Well, they were adjusting nicely without Hutchinson, and of course that hope that he would be back if they made it to the NFC Championship or the Super Bowl was out there. But they moved on, next man up mentality with Dan Campbell. I mean, that's the way it is. I just wish he would have kicked that freaking field goal last year, but at the end of the day, I still have a lot of respect. I'm still old school. I'm not all an analytical guy or a sabermetrics guy. I'm still somebody that puts human element into these games. Anzalone's a big time guy on defense because he's one of those signal callers that makes sure everybody else is in the right place. And so when you lose 2 guys like that, it is key that they did grab Zadarius Smith, because this kid knows how to play the game. And he's going to be an impact player, and now he's going to have to up his game a little bit more as well. But their offense is good enough to outscore anybody. And last week in the Mark Lawrence Wise Guys play, I did use the Lions as my 2-point play, and I used Texas State as my 1 point. So I think I won the 2 games 115-9. I'll never do that again, but that was, when you're laying 27.5 with Texas State and 14 or whatever it was with the Lions, people look, especially NFL, they're like 14, there's no way. This team is legit. I went and saw them against Arizona. I was at that game, Cardinals and Lions. Detroit looked 40 pounds heavier per man on both lines of scrimmage. That's what it looked like. They were wearing their white uniform, but they pushed Arizona around. Arizona hung in there, and Kyler Murray's playing at the top of his game since the injuries. Looks fabulous. But this Lions team is in a class by themselves right now. Their running game is legit, and the Raiders are finding out, yes, you do need a running back, and the Giants are finding that out as well. Over a few $1 million to lose, Jacobs or to lose Barkley is absolutely ridiculous. You need to pay. Not only do you need 1 running back, if you want to be the best in the league, you better have 2 running backs. And look at Detroit. They've got 2 running backs. You mentioned Philly. They got 2 pretty good ones, and they got still the tush push with Jalen Hurts on that 3rd and 1, 4th and 1 stuff.
I remember a couple of years ago, the media was all saying, well, you don't have to pay the running backs. They don't matter anymore. What bull BS that was.
Yep, no doubt about it. You better pay these guys. And when you look at it, what the Giants and what the Raiders squabbled over was literally like $3 million a year per play. It's ridiculous. I mean, and then you're going to go out and overpay Brandon Ayuk? Are you kidding me? And we know Juwan Jennings is just as good as Ayuk. Why are you paying all that money? Receivers are a dime a dozen now. Guys can step in, right system, go there. These kids are coming out of college. Yes, everybody looks good when you have single coverage and the other guy's getting double covered. So they put up big time. They have 1 year, and then they turn it in. They parlay it into a big time $100 million contract while the running backs are getting screwed.
Jeff, what do you like with this game, if anything, this week going to Indy? Last I looked, it was 7.5 and a total of 50. Is it still there?
Yeah, that's 7.5 and 50. I didn't like anything in this game. I did play quite a few games, but this wasn't one of them.
Give me one of the games that you liked the most.
Well, I laid 4 with the Broncos against the Raiders when the number first came out. And again, you got teams going in different directions, and I don't normally like road favorites, but here's an example of team playing very, very well. They defensively and offensively, and they're playing against a team that very well may have quit, and it doesn't look like the Raiders really even care. So I took a shot with that. I thought the number was a little low, and so I laid the 4 at the Circa when it first came out, and then and now I think it's up to 6.5, which is about what I made it.
Yeah, it looks like the Raiders, they lost their running backs. They got injuries all over the place, and look at the Giants. I mean, they're going with their 3rd string Tommy DeVito at quarterback, and the kid that they paid all the money to, that they shouldn't have paid the money to, Jones. He's now 4th string, and they just want to get rid of him so they can dump the salary so they don't have to pay him any money. I think there's like a $23 million number they're trying to get rid of. And there's a lot of teams. There's probably 10 teams in the NFL, which is absolutely insane, that could be in tank mode.
Oh.
This is unbelievable.
And there's some that can't even get to tank mode, like the Bears. I think they would like to be in tank mode, but they're below tank mode, I think.
But the Bears last week actually tried to win.
Yeah,
they didn't play that bad. I mean, look at the Jaguars. I mean, you know, some of these teams don't even look like they're trying to play.
But the Jaguars already spent so much money giving Trevor Lawrence an extension. They're set on quarterback right now because that's where they think they need to be, and they need to put a cast around him. I mean, you better have a couple solid running backs, at least one that's an outstanding pass receiver out of the backfield. Got to have that, and you know, you got to be tough in the trenches, and that's what to me separates Detroit from the rest of the league. Their offensive line, to me, will push around anybody. That includes the Niners, and if Nick Bosa's not 100%, which he hardly ever is, the Niners won't have a chance against Detroit. I don't see anybody really. You mentioned Philly. I guess if Philly's 100% and they play their A game, they'll hang with Detroit. But if Detroit protects Goff, because let's face it, Goff's not a scrambling guy, and he's somebody that if he takes a blindside hit, is going to be in trouble. But they will protect him, and that's why Detroit, to me, is a good quarter length ahead of everybody looking to be Secretariat at the end of the year.
You know, Kenny, you just brought up something with the 49ers and Bosa. I don't know if he's going to play this week, but they're a road dog at Green Bay this week. I think this is going to be a good test to find out where are the 49ers at this point in the season. Last I looked, they were getting 1.5 points. I don't know if it's still there or not. Do you know, Jeff?
Well, there is another issue there.
It's still
you got
two.
Purdy. Purdy has the bad shoulder.
Yeah, although Purdy should be all right to go, but the problem, you know, the 49ers have had just an enormous amount of injuries. If healthy, you know, they're about as good as any team in the NFL. The problem is that they haven't been healthy. And you know, getting back to the quarterbacks that we were talking about before, you know, the Giants have to bench Jones, because if Jones gets hurt, they have to pay him next year. Whereas if they bench him, they just cut him at the end of the year, and then they can, you know, go and get a quarterback. But if you miss with a quarterback, which, you know, I mean, I'm a big Bills fan, and the Bills drafted J.P. Lozman years ago, and it set them back 2-3 years, you know, and you know, the Deshaun Watson for Cleveland, I mean they signed him for God knows how much money, and they're stuck with him. I mean,
and Berry should be fired, the GM. I mean, they're giving Stefanski heat. Berry should be fired because he guaranteed that money, and he never vetted Watson. He just waited because the grand juries didn't indict. That's the only reason Deshaun Watson's even playing football. And karma comes back and bites you in the ass.
Isn't that the same team that drafted Manziel #1, which was another disaster?
You know, if you make a mistake with a quarterback, which again the Giants did, I mean, look what happens to your franchise. You know, and then if you get a franchise quarterback like you know, the Bills got Allen, you know, the Chiefs got Mahomes, you lock them up for their career. And you're competitive as long as they stay healthy. You're competitive, you know, for 10 years, and that's the key, you know, along with having a good offensive and defensive line.
And you get rid of somebody like Stephon Diggs, that's a freaking cancer that just wants the ball all the time and is pointing at the back of his jersey. Now he's in Houston. Karma came down and bit him in the ass, and he's hurt. But at the end of the day, Buffalo's a better team without Stephon Diggs.
Yeah, and Ayuk too. You know,
yep.
It's all these guys that hold out and they don't go to training camp.
That's
and
right. Josh Jacobs last year, and that's why he looked like crap for the Raiders at the end of the year and then he ended up not even playing the last few games, and that's where Zamir White got the opportunity that he did, because he had 2 decent games, so they thought they could move on from Jacobs. But a healthy Jacobs that goes to training camp, you see him excelling with Green Bay now.
Kenny, you bring up a good point. That's one of those deals where it's addition by subtraction. Your team gets better by getting rid of somebody that you don't need around, and the team rallies around going, finally, that guy's gone, now we can all do what we want to do. Jim, moving on to tonight's game, Pittsburgh at Cleveland. 3.5's the line. Do you like this game at all?
Well, there's so many mysteries around this game and the weather. You know, I got a lot of relatives in Cleveland. I was talking to them this morning. It might not be as bad as what we were thinking a couple days ago, but it is going to be cold. It's going to be in the 30s, maybe low 30s. You might have wind 15 to 30 miles an hour. You don't know, because every hour it changes. They definitely aren't the lake, and they have that lake effect issue where the weather changes so quickly. But you know, Pittsburgh wins and the Browns lose, but this is a division game. You got a division home dog. You got Pittsburgh coming off the very physical game, the tough game against the Ravens. But then you look at the Browns, and I mean, they can mess up anything. I mean, just they're a shit show.
Is this something to look at betting under?
Now, you would bet, but you look at the number. I mean, I think it was 41. Now it's 36.
Yeah.
I think it popped back up a little bit to 37. But we don't know what the weather's going to be in a couple hours. It should, it could be, if the weather is 30 miles an hour gusts and 25 steady or 22 steady, it's going to be tough. I mean, and Jameis, he hasn't played a game ever in a temperature below 40 degrees, and now he's going to be doing it.
Ray LaMarca is on this side of the table today, and he just got real excited on this. You must have a comment on this game.
Yeah, I'm from Cleveland. I've been to about 37 of these games, of the Pittsburgh-Cleveland games, not just games. So I know this rivalry pretty well. It's the definition of a rivalry. No matter how bad the Browns are, no matter how good the Steelers are, or vice versa, it's always a divisional juggernaut. It's always under 5 for some reason. It seems like, I don't know the exact numbers, but I'm sure if you look at the numbers, the history, of course, different quarterback, different everything, it's going to tell you to take Cleveland with that hook, especially.
Well, definitely, it all leans towards Cleveland.
It does.
And if Nick Chubb was running the way he used to run the ball, I would take Cleveland, but he's not, so I'm not doing it.
It's not, and I did grab the minute that it opened. Me and these guys that we all know. When it hit 30.5 when it opened, that was a no-brainer. That lasted.
You playing that under?
Oh, at 38.5, that didn't last 10 minutes on that app, on any app. It immediately went to 37.5. If you're lucky to grab that, but we'll see. Who knows? Weather means nothing to these teams, guys. Weather means nothing. The trenches is what matters to these two teams. It might seem like the weather, but it's not. But like Kenny said, Chubb's he's not a shell of himself, but he's just not who he was. If you're looking at this season, it says, I'm from Cleveland. I'm a Cleveland guy, okay? What do you want me to tell you? Pittsburgh should win this football game. Who knows? I don't think there's any guarantees for tonight, but maybe Jameis Winston to throw an interception at some point. It's probably your only guarantee tonight.
Is there any chance of rain or snow or sleet?
It is going to rain. It's going to snow. It's going to be so. If it's that temperature, it's not going to be rain. It's going to be snow. The one thing, I will say this: if the weather does matter and the wind definitely matters, it's hard to kick field goals if the wind is high, and especially in that stadium. You're not. In September, everybody was hitting 55-yard field goals, and now they're all missing 30-yard field goals. Well, it'd be easy to miss some 30-yard field goals tonight if the wind is up in the 20s and 30s.
Maybe field goal attempts would be a good prop bet.
Field goal attempt prop bet?
I think this might be an exciting, one of the slow games, but it's kind of exciting if you know football, one of them real football type of guy.
It's not going to be a game you sit down with your buddies for a couple beers and some wings to go. This is going to be an exciting game, unless you're a weather guy.
Yeah, not a lot of live betting unless you're a defensive guy.
The latest forecast I got about a half hour ago was the wind isn't going to be that much of a factor tonight. 5 to 8 miles an hour. So that's dwindled. That can always change, but the wind isn't going to be as big a factor. But it is supposed to rain pretty steadily, and possibly snow, which you get that wet snow, which makes it bad. But yeah, you're going to see a lot of running, I think, in this one.
You like this game, Jeff?
Not really. If I played it, I would take Cleveland. But again, I made the game 3, and if I bet it, I would take the points. If it went back to 4, I might grab a little bit. But I think an interesting stat, which is the Steelers have never won a road divisional Thursday night game. They're 0-7 and they're 0-5 under Tomlin. So I don't know if that means anything, but Tomlin hasn't won a Thursday divisional game. So I would lean towards Cleveland, but Cleveland's not very good, and Pittsburgh seems to be getting it all working this year, so I'm going to probably just pass on.
Have they come within 3.5 of any of those Thursday games?
That I don't know.
There you go.
Great question. Bills take down the Chiefs. Bills are on a bye week. Did this wake up the Chiefs, or are they still in this, I don't even know what mode you call it, somehow getting through the season and making it work? They don't look like the Chiefs that we've all been accustomed to seeing over the past years. They're going to the Panthers, they're giving 11, or laying 11. Jim, what do you think? Are they woke up, or is this, we're going to see the same thing again this week?
They've been sleepwalking.
Yeah, that was a good word, sleepwalking.
They've been winning games that were, I think there was a 2-point conversion that they almost lost to the Bengals, and then the block kick to Denver, and then last week was, they were in the game. They're still a great team, great talent. They have the best defensive coordinator in the game with Spagnuolo. Andy Reid is an awesome coach. You know who the Mahomes is, and Kelsey and all that stuff. They might get Pacheco back a little bit this week, but I don't know if you get excited to go down to Carolina and beat. This is one of the worst teams in football, and they haven't shown very much to make you scared of them. So I don't know if they get motivated, because like I said, they've been sleepwalking. And let me turn this thing off. So I don't know if you get motivated. I can't lay it, but this year double-digit favorites have done actually well, which is very unusual. It doesn't usually happen in the NFL. But this year, double-digit favorites have been winning and covering.
Well, here's something else you say you don't know if you get excited to go down and play Carolina. But then the following week, they're going to go home and the Raiders are coming to town. So are you getting excited for the next 2 games?
Well, they're in a great position with, unless I guess the Chargers would be the team if they go on a roll and this team starts to lose.
3 weeks away.
You could be, because when you got Harbaugh and Herbert down there and they're playing well, if they can knock off the Ravens and go on a run, you could threaten this team a little bit. But this is a 2-time Super Bowl champ going for a 3-peat, but they look like they think they're already there. And they just haven't been playing inspired, intense football like you would normally see out of them.
Jeff, Kenny, your thoughts on the Chiefs?
My feeling on Kansas City is, yeah, they have been sleepwalking. We could say that, or maybe they're just not as good as they were. You look at the personnel; they've, there's been some, receiver problem with Rashee Rice going down. Talk about karma, that came back to bite him in the ass. Go to jail now in Dallas. But at the end of the day, they just don't look like the same team. Now, you mentioned Pacheco, Jim. That's huge. A healthy Pacheco, got to be 100%, because that kid runs downhill, and he's hard, and he doesn't avoid contact, and that's probably, how you get hurt every now and then in the NFL as a running back. But he's legit. He gives him a different gear from the running back position, better than Hunt. Hunt will get you yardage. Pacheco will make yardage. He'll get it on his own. He can get that extra 3-4 yards, and he can bust one as well. He's got the speed to do it. So that's a key right there. Kelsey, people are getting used to him just sitting down in the zone and turning around, so they're starting to get wise to that and not leave him alone and not just put a linebacker on him. So I think teams are making adjustments, and I just don't think Kansas City's near as good as they were. Their record is good, but let's remember that opening Thursday night game against Baltimore, if Likely's foot is not on the end line there, that's another loss to start the season. So yeah, they've been in a lot of close ones, and I think Buffalo's the team to beat in the AFC.
Jeff, your thoughts on the Chiefs? Let me ask you this, because Kenny brings up a great point. Even if they're not as good as they were, is this a team that may be sitting back on, we'll turn it on when the playoffs come?
There's just been too many weeks where they haven't. So I'm thinking they also have a lineman injury, and their offensive line is not what it was. So Mahomes doesn't have the time to throw like he has in the past, and they're not as good. They've been actually relying on their defense a little bit more, which is actually pretty formidable. I was at the Bills-Chiefs game this week. I went back to Buffalo for it, and it was an amazing crowd. But again, the Chiefs were in that game right up until Allen. If they stop Allen on 4th and 2, it might be another one of those last-minute field goals, and the Chiefs could have won by a point. But Allen made a great run, and they win. And then Mahomes throws the interception at the end. Bills pick up a nine-point win. But it was very, very competitive game. There's something missing with the Chiefs. Again, they could. You've been using sleepwalk. They could probably sleepwalk through Carolina and the Raiders in the next 2 weeks, and then go pick up a couple more wins, but they really don't have a lot of room for error because they're only one game ahead of Buffalo, and if Buffalo wins the tiebreakers, so I mean, if they were to blow one of these games, they don't want to be going back to Buffalo, that's for sure, and they're very strong at home. So I think their schedule is not that difficult, and there's a real good likelihood that they'll be able to be the 1 seed, and then they get the bye and they don't have to leave Kansas City, so they could very, very easily get healthy and be back in the Super Bowl again, even though they're not as good. There's 3 teams that, in my opinion, that could do it in the AFC, and that's Buffalo, Baltimore, and Kansas City. And I don't think Pittsburgh's for real, even though they have the better record and they beat Baltimore last week. Baltimore's a better team than Pittsburgh. And I think when push comes to shove, those will be the 3 teams: Baltimore, Kansas City, and Buffalo.
Well, here's the one thing with Tomlin, and I know his Thursday night record, but if Pittsburgh somehow, and they only have 2 losses like Buffalo, they don't have a tiebreaker on KC, but if Pittsburgh ever got the home field advantage throughout the AFC, forget about it. That defense, you give me TJ Watt, I'm good. I'll start my defense any day of the week with TJ Watt, best, most dynamic player in the AFC on defense. And that crowd there, and now you got a field goal kicker that's kicking 57-yarders. Pittsburgh can field goal you to death, like the death of 1,000 cuts, and they can beat you 18-16. They don't give a crap. They'll win by 2 ugly instead of Kansas City winning by, or Buffalo winning by 20. Pittsburgh's good enough to do it if they get home field.
If they can do it, they have a tough schedule going down the road. I mean, they have one of the toughest schedules.
Nobody thought they're going to be Baltimore. That's why they made Baltimore a 3.5-point road favorite last week.
That was crazy.
Right?
Yeah.
I agree.
But they have to play Baltimore one more time. In Baltimore.
We got a question from the audience. Ray, you got a question?
Yeah, well, real quick, after what I saw last week, I pretty much made my decision. We can see what's going on. Nobody can really run side to side, sideline to sideline with San Francisco or Baltimore, but their schedule deems them. It's never going to happen for either of them. When it comes to Kansas City, Ken did it again. Buffalo showed you they got it. They got the key. They ran the Okie. They brought out 5-6 linebackers. They frustrated them. They came at them. Whether the game's in Buffalo, whether the game's in Kansas City, unfortunately, Kansas City doesn't have the secondary to pull off the feat of this magnitude. They got that kid running around bad. And they're going to do it again, and they're not going to be able to stop the Okie. They can't. There's nothing they can do this season to stop it. Too late to bring in a receiver. Too late to do this. There's no adjustments that can be made. I truly feel that Buffalo has a key to that Kansas City vault this year. That being said, I've changed my mind, and I'm making my final pick. I'm making 2 of them. Big exactas. 14-1 that Detroit beats the Buffalo Bills in the Super Bowl. 12-1 that the Buffalo Bills beat Detroit in the Super Bowl. And on the way there, this whole dance from right now all the way, I'm just going to keep hitting the button, the money line button on Kansas City to get the money back until they show me otherwise.
This could be a year where both Super Bowl teams last year don't get there.
We're going to find out what happens, so I just wanted to get my little 2 cents in there.
Last week we talked about the Chargers possibly being one of the teams that could make a second half push. After that game last week, it almost looked like Harbaugh was telling the league, I'm putting you on notice because we're continuing to get better and better and better. Are you a believer in the Chargers or not?
I'm a believer in Harbaugh.
Okay.
I mean, his pedigree, everywhere he's gone, college or pro, he's been a winner. I'm a believer in Herbert. When he's healthy, the team is not as stacked as it was a few years ago. They've lost some players, but the upgrade in coach is remarkable. I think they're going to win this game on Monday night. I think they're going to beat Baltimore.
Jimmy Herbert's got to learn he's not Josh Allen. So when you're challenging a Cincinnati secondary player and you duck your shoulder and you cause a key fumble like he did that almost cost him the game, you're not Josh Allen. You got to know your role. You slide there, you already had the first down, they score there, that game's over. Cincinnati's never even in it because it's a 2-score game again late.
What does it take to teach you that? An injury and a good...
It takes Jim Harbaugh to get in your face at the end of the game. Trust me, he did.
And Harbaugh always had a tendency to get a little conservative when he gets ahead. And I mean, they had a big lead in that game. And then of course, you can't really stop. Maybe the best offense in football is Cincinnati. I mean, when they get everybody on that field, you really can't slow them down.
They miss Mixon though. They do.
Yeah. Well, they got rid of him, and it's kind of a cheap organization. They make some terrible moves, and getting rid of him was awful because they can't. When they get ahead, they can't really protect the lead. It's still Burrow's got to go back and keep throwing the ball, and you can't win like that. You got to be able to protect the lead by running the clock out and eating some time. But that's the kind of mistakes that these analytic guys, as you mentioned before, are making, and maybe that'll stop someday.
You like the money line with the Chargers on Monday, or are you going to take the points? Or are you going to do both?
Maybe a little bit of both.
A little bit of both.
Yeah.
Jeff, what about you?
Again, it's a great game. If I were to play it, I would have to play the Chargers. But again, I think the numbers may be slightly high. But the Chargers offensively, although they're coming along a little bit, not sure if they're going to be able to keep up offensively.
You're starting to see a lot more Charger fans at the games. Those from San Diego area and Orange County are making it to LA now with Harbaugh there, as opposed to the transient team they were last year before Harbaugh came in. You'll see the same thing this week if you're thinking about Denver, and you talked about that line going up to 6.5. You can bet 70% of that crowd at Allegiant Stadium will be wearing orange. They will be Denver fans. Raiders beat them 8 in a row. Denver beat them. Streak gets to 8. Whatever happens that one time to break the streak usually happens the next time as well. I think Denver rolls as well.
Kenny, curiosity.
I'd like to...
Go ahead.
Yes, you in the back. Question.
Yes. I'd just like to throw in one for you. Rashad Bateman under 3.5 receptions on that game. Lock that
Prop
in.
bet.
Yeah, just throw that
Lock it in.
Price. You're going to pay a little price here. That's my go-to. I know it's a new thing for you.
Is that price less than your adjusted HOA fee?
Yeah, you like that? How about that one? About 10 of them. You're going to pay 10 of them for that.
Kenny, I'm curious in your opinion, how many teams you think really have a legitimate chance to win this whole thing? Is it down to 4? Is it down to 5? Are we at 6?
Detroit, Philly, San Francisco, if they are 100% healthy, I agree. They're still to be reckoned with. But
If they can get in.
Those losses are piling up.
Right.
I will say,
Baltimore?
Arizona, I've watched them. I go to Cardinal games down there in Phoenix. Kyler Murray, I thought he was done after the injury. I am impressed. That tight end is phenomenal, the kid out of Colorado State. They have playmakers. Now, again, they weren't as big as Detroit on both lines of scrimmage, and I was there at that game, but they were still in that game. And let's remember, they opened in Buffalo and only lost that game by 6 at the beginning of the year. So this Cardinal team is under the radar, still under the radar, only a one game lead in the NFC West, which, I mean, at the end of this weekend, they could all be tied, at 6 and 5 if the Cardinals lose up in Seattle in the rain. So, but realistically, I think Detroit, I don't see anybody from the north. Minnesota's a nice story. Outside of Detroit, Green Bay's Love is okay. They're just not. They're very fortunate to beat Chicago, like you said last week, and nobody from the South. Atlanta's not doing anything, or Tampa Bay. So yeah, I see 3 teams in the NFC: Philly, Detroit first, Philly second, and then San Francisco. Everybody's got to be 100%, especially Bosa. And then in the AFC, I've got Buffalo. But of course, we'll look at Kansas City. It's hard to until you beat the champ, he's the champ, right? And then Baltimore is dangerous with Lamar Jackson. But we just never know if we're going to see the Lamar Jackson that we see a third of the way into the season, running all over teams, use his legs more than he tries to use his arm, because they tried to get that in there. And what did it do? It ruined Michael Vick, and I think it ruins Lamar Jackson too.
The funny thing, I mean, the game last week, Henry the ball 13 times, which, I mean, you have a back like that, you got to use him more than 13 times.
I will say this, did you see the hit T.J. Watt put on Derrick Henry? I have never seen Derrick Henry be knocked back 2 yards. T.J. Watt, he's legit.
Yes, he is.
Jeff, with you, are you agree about the same 6 teams? Are we looking at those 6?
Yeah. those are the 6. You know, and again, if San Francisco doesn't make it, which they very well may not, you know, then there's 5.
Ray's choking back there. You must have another team we didn't mention.
No, what I was going to say was this. You know what I'm doing. Okay, Detroit, Buffalo, the whole
The whole exacta.
Yeah,
Bet the house, bet the farm, everything but the HOA fees.
That's right. So instead of what I'm going to do, instead of the little dark horses, let's face the facts here. If Arizona does somehow win the Super Bowl, it's going to be because of Kyler Murray. So what do? A little sprinkle on Super Bowl MVP Kyler Murray early. A little sprinkle on Purdy a little bit early. A little sprinkle on Darnold early. Oh, we're talking 24-1, 26-1. I mean, you know what I mean? And then you got the big mainstays up here. That's it. Seacrest out.
I'm not arguing with him. It's the sprinkles.
Yeah. Jeff, I'm curious from you, is there a game this week that you like a lot that we haven't mentioned yet? Anything that you're leaning on, that you've been looking at, going, yeah, this, I like this line, or I like this total, or a first half, or a money line?
I played the Bears plus 3.5 against the Vikings. Again, a home divisional dog. The Vikings don't really show me a ton. Like you said, a nice story, but you know the Bears have a good defense, and I think that'll be a close game, and I think maybe the Bears might figure out how to win a game. But even if they decide to hold for a mid 40-yard field goal when they could get a little closer, which is again, you know, there's some of these coaches just got to get fired. You know, they're too conservative, and you know, got to play for wins and not settle on field goals. But I think maybe that left a little sour taste in their mouth, and I think they come out and maybe even Caleb Williams shows one good game for a change. But I definitely do like the Bears this week to keep it close or win the game.
I would just say this, that if the Bears went for that extra 3 yards or whatever, and the weather was nice there, wasn't bad, Santos will make a 50-yarder, no problem. This is a 46-yarder. It's a can of corn. If you do your blocking, the ball's going right down the middle, the game's over. So everybody's Monday night quarterback or Monday morning quarterback, like, oh, if they would have got 3 extra. When the guy kicks the ball, it's 10 yards past the goalpost. Okay, so he didn't need that 3 yards or 5 yards. He didn't need it. It's bad. Just the same thing with Denver. You let Kansas City come in and block the field goal. These are special teams things that, you know, Pittsburgh, that's why Pittsburgh's always around. Why? Because their special teams are always good. They always come through in the clutch with something you never expected. And that's what'll screw up a total when you go for the under. All of a sudden, Pittsburgh on special teams will come up with some fluky play and turn it into a touchdown the other way when you weren't looking that way. So it's tough with those 36s or 37s, whatever.
You know, Jeff brought up coaches, which just reminded me something I saw, which brings me to one of your favorite teams ever in the Cowboys. Now I see Belichick being rumored to possibly be going to Dallas. What kind of marriage is that with him and Jerry Jones?
I was just going to say, that's a strange marriage. Belichick and Jerry Jones, I don't see that working. I mean, sign the divorce papers the day they meet. I mean, I can't see that happening.
We know Deion's not going there, and we know Deion's going to stay in college. If you didn't see it, Julian Lewis is going to go to Colorado, the quarterback that left USC and decommitted.
Oh, he is?
He signed with Colorado.
Oh, he ain't going anywhere. I mean, you brought it up, I think, a couple times on this show the last couple weeks. It doesn't make a difference who the coach is for Dallas. They're not going to coach because Jerry's going to run the show from the press box.
Well, you got some bad ownership in the league. I mean, you can look at the Jets. When was the last time they did anything right? They're a mess. Dallas, they haven't been. Regular season, they've done pretty well. This year, they did a terrible job off season. And you have the guy, the new owner down in Carolina, who seems to be another very wealthy person that's interfering and has done some terrible things. And football-wise, obviously, you got hats off that they've made all the money they made to be able to be in the position they're in. But they're not allowing the football people to make the football decisions. And when you do that, I think you screw things up.
Any other questions from the audience before? Yes, Ray, go ahead. Walk in.
Just to let you know, David Tepper, I read his book, I've heard about it. He is this year backing off. He is going to back off and do the Robert Kraft type deal. And you can't hold him to his word. The dude's a maniac. If you know this guy Tepper, he's awesome. He applied for a job, JP Morgan, real quick, like 20 years ago. He didn't get the job, and he got real mad at the guy. So what he did 20 years later is he bought his house for $8 million, and he took a wrecking ball and wrecked the house, and he built a $40 million compound on the house. The guy, that's the type of human being you're dealing with Tepper. They actually modeled the show Billions after him, but he said he's going to back off and do his thing. All right, quick question. I just want all four of your opinions.
What are his HOA fees?
He probably doesn't have any. He doesn't have any because
He bought the whole town?
He doesn't live in Summerlin. He doesn't have the Howard Hughes fee.
He bought all the land. What's your prop bet question?
All right, what's the best one for tonight? I can't decide. I'll probably end up taking a vote because that's just what I do.
Probably Jameis to throw a touchdown,
So
or
what's
not
the
a
best
touchdown,
one?
but an interception.
Jameis Winston to throw an interception minus 214, or Chris Boswell to make 2 field goals tonight minus 194.
I like that one.
Ooh.
Yeah, I would go with Boswell.
I like Boswell a lot better than Winston.
Well, if Jeff's right and it's only 8-mile-an-hour winds, it's not going to really affect the kicking that much. The predictions all week long have been up. I mean, 8's nothing. But if it's 20-25, then it's something.
Well, the reason I like that a lot more too is just Kenny touched on Earlier. Pittsburgh will field goal you to death.
Yep.
Over and over. They don't. Yeah, they want to score, but they'll just keep kicking field goals all night long.
By the way, Cleveland, I think last week their field goal kicker missed a bunch of field goals. I think he missed a bunch of kicks.
3 in a row.
Oh, was it 3?
I believe
Is he
so.
still got a job? He may not have a job.
No, the Haslam's are in charge. He's got a job. In fact, we just guaranteed his salary. We put it right next to Deshaun Watson's.
Yeah, right.
Jeff, I'm going to ask you a question that we've talked about on the show that you weren't here, and being a year in numbers guy and stuff like that. What is it worth the head coach to make an impact on a line? The difference in coaching between two teams, does the head coach have an impact on what that line can move?
The head coach really doesn't have much of an impact on the line, although it should.
It should.
But I don't think it really does. Although, in the playoffs, we've been talking about Cleveland. Schottenheimer just never won a playoff game, and you keep going on and on. There's certain coaches that don't win, and then you got guys like Belichick that have an incredible record in the playoffs when the games matter. So yes, the head coach should be a factor. When I make my numbers, sometimes I'll make a half a point adjustment, but you can't really make too big of an adjustment. Although the game plans and stuff, you have some coaches that are just always prepared, and you can actually bet on one coach versus another, a good coach versus a bad coach, because the coaching does matter, but not. I don't think it's built into the line.
If you have the head coach from Detroit, who's kind of a loose cannon, you're really not sure what he's going to do. But he's done a tremendous job. I'm not knocking him, but you really don't know what he's going to do. He might go for 4th and 4 from his own 4. He just. And then you get a guy like Harbaugh, who's always going to go by the book, and he's a fantastic coach with the pedigree. You can't have any more pedigree than that. Or Reed, but then you have this wild weed over here, so they're all different. But most of them are within a box. They play within the rules of what coaching and standard football is. But then you occasionally get this one kind of character.
Yeah, Detroit and Philadelphia, both their coaches. You never know. Earlier this year, I forgot which game it was. It was, I think, 14 seconds left in the half, and it was like 4th and 1 at the 15. And you figured, they'll kick a field goal, and they went for it, and they did the like a little run. They didn't get the first down, so they didn't even kick the field goal. And I know he got criticized for that, and he should have. because even if you make the first down, you got to use your timeout. Now you have no timeouts left, and you're at, to say, the 12-yard line. I mean, you cost yourself 3 points. But a lot of these coaches, make tremendous mistakes. And we were talking about Jones. I mean, best thing Jones could ever do was fire himself, because he's the reason, the main reason that the Cowboys haven't been successful. He's made terrible mistakes with drafting, and if he actually hired a good general manager, and he wants to win, and he sat back and and let the actual football guy run the show, Dallas would be a lot better than they are.
Kenny, what do you think? Coaches should be a factor in lines or not?
They are for me. And first off, I'll tip off Mark Lawrence. Mark, of course, Jim Feist and Mark have been friends for a long time, but Mark Lawrence told me when we did our preview for the season, that not only would the Chargers hang in there with the Chiefs, that they would beat the Chiefs in the AFC West. And I was like, are you kidding me? I go, you lost all your receivers? Yeah, you veteran receiver. What do you got, Quentin Johnson? I mean, come on, what are you doing? You got the kid McConkey coming out of Georgia? And I was looking, I was like, that team is dangerous, and Harbaugh makes them dangerous, and he gets that chemistry where the trenches. Once they realize that they can hang with anybody in the trenches, they're not intimidated. The skill position players, they'll figure it out. And that's what makes a guy like Jim Harbaugh awesome. John Harbaugh's been doing it for a long time, although he pisses me off as far as with Lamar Jackson, because he's not letting him run like he should, and that's probably what's cost him playoff games, because Lamar doesn't get in a groove, and all of a sudden there's 4 minutes to go in the third quarter, and they're down 10. And if you're laying points, you're hurting. You're just hoping they limp through the game. So, but yeah, for me, I do take consideration the coaches. And Campbell, after not kicking that field goal for Detroit last year, I lost respect for him, because, again, at the end of the day, I look at the analytical crap and I get it. There's certain times to go. And you talked about a guy going for it 4th and 1 on his own 4. Jeff Monken for Army did that 4th and 1 on his own 10 once. And I looked and I go, risk and reward. If you get it, you still got to go 89 yards. If you don't get it, they got to go 10. I mean, so, you got to look at risk and reward still. And I don't think a lot of these guys get it. But guys like Jim Harbaugh and, certain coaches in the league and Andy Reid, to me, they should come into play as far as the point spread, especially when going up against a novice guy, a young guy that doesn't have a lot of experience.
Let me add one more layer to this, because I wanted to see where we were going to go with the head coach. But I know you're a big fan of Spagnow. How much does that add on when you have somebody like that on your staff?
It makes a big difference. When you have what you consider to be one of the top 1 or 2 defensive coordinators in the game, and you have players that can play his scheme, it makes a big difference to me. Coaching means a lot to me. Offensive, defensive.
I agree.
But head coach, it means a lot. I prefer, maybe it's because I'm older, but the old football, block, tackle, catch. The analytics drive me crazy, because those numbers are made up of small sample sizes of unequal coaching, unequal teams, unequal quarterbacks, and you're making these numbers up in your head to do, this is what you do in this spot. But not every team. Do you really want to play an extra quarter against Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid? Or would you rather play it against
I'm still upset that my Tampa
Pierce
Bay
and Minshew? I'll play another quarter against those guys, but I'm
on
not
the
gonna,
road.
But you can't. It's the same analytics are telling you what to do against both, and it's not equal. It makes no sense.
I'm with you, because as a former basketball coach, I'm big into coaching. You can have players, but the players are only going to do what the coach requires or asks them to do, or run the plays or run the defensive schemes. They're going to run what they've been asked to do, what's been called in, which is done by the coaching staff. I've seen many teams with a lot of quality players not have coaches and are not very good. Then again, as you brought up, you have the Chargers, who lost a lot of guys who have a coaching staff and a scheme that makes them dangerous.
It makes them dangerous, but just like San Francisco with Nick Bosa, Chargers better have Joey Bosa 100%. That's another key guy. Those Bosa boys, when they're 100%, they are a game changer. When they don't have those guys, the defense is not near as good. I just want to say one thing real quick as far as old school stuff that Jim and I go, what happened to the 80s, the late 70s, the 80s, even into the early 90s? Every time a team got to the 2-yard line, we looked Touchdown. It's a touchdown, right? Up and over. Sam Cunningham. All these guys up and over the pile every time. Unless the linebacker timed it perfectly and hit him in the air, you're getting in the end zone on 4 cracks. Unless you're Pete Johnson for the Bengals in the Super Bowl. But other than that, I mean, it was automatic, right? Now, 4th and 1, oh shit, let me stand back at my 5-yard line, hand it to the running back next to me. There's not even I formation or split backfield. Let me hand it to this guy. Now you need 4th and 5. You don't need freaking 1. I'm sick of this crap. They've ruined this crap. You see how many teams with their little finesse bullshit get inside the 5-yard line, 1st and goal, and what are we doing on 2nd down? Because the run didn't work on 1st down. We're passing. So now it's 3rd and 2. Now what are we doing? Oh, we got to pass. No, we'll go off tackle. So we gain a yard. Now it's 4th and 1. Let's line up in the shotgun. So when it's 4th and 1, it becomes 4th and 5. It is absolutely moronic. What are you doing freaking practice all day? I get it. You take everything from shotgun snaps. That's the way of the game. There, you want to spread it out, but you still should have your guy able to go under center when it's 4th and 1. And they're letting this bullshit with Philadelphia get. They haven't changed it. So good for Philly taking advantage of the tush push, because until they stop it, Philly's the smartest team, and they got Jalen Hurts that can do it because he can squat 600 pounds. But the rest of these teams aren't doing it. Why not? If they're going to let you have 5 big linemen push your guy in, then freaking do it. You know, take it until they change the rules. What happened to forward motion? There's no forward motion stopping anymore. It's fucking rugby, man. I'm sick of it.
The up and over was exciting.
Right.
And
we don't see it anymore.
You don't see it.
I saw it last week. Somebody did it and they got up and over on a 3rd and goal.
I think it was in the UNLV Rebel game. I saw it. Somebody went up and over.
Yeah, but there was a pro game too. Somebody didn't. I go, oh my God. I go, let me save that footage.
Last questions from the audience. Ray, I'm sure you got one more. Go
I
ahead.
got 3 more. I like what you said real quick. I got 2 comments and then a thing. Like you said about Herbert, I love what you said, because, you know, halfway through the year, I'm thinking, what is Harbaugh doing restricting this dude? You're restricting this guy, unleashes, and you were right, and then he's right. You're not Lamar Jackson. You're not Mahomes, dude. Know your role.
You're not Josh Allen.
And I love the way he's going. As far as what we're talking about with the coordinators and everything, this is what I love. We went back, we danced on the last podcast, culture, character, locker room, stuff like that. And the coordinators do matter. They matter a point and a half to me. They know the role. Spagnuolo, Dick LeBeau. A lot of these coaches, man, like we said, are victim to the Peter principle. They did so good at a coordinating position, it's got to be a great head coach. And then it fails, and that's where they have to stop it right there.
That happens more than not with that Peter principle. In business and in life.
In business and life.
It's all the same.
Absolutely.
But Jeff, you said one of your best plays was the Bears, and they brought a new offensive coordinator in last week, and they changed the game, and Williams, they had him running the ball. He used his legs more. Their game plan was so much better and positive than the previous weeks, and they're a dangerous team. And when you look at Minnesota, their quarterback has some kind of ailment. He wasn't practicing. I don't know what it is, but something's wrong with Darnold.
And every time Tennessee had a big play last week, there was a flag, except for that 98-yard touchdown pass or whatever. But there was a touchdown that was called back. That was a late holding. So every time Minnesota's lead was going to go back down to under 6, it was like the old remember the Titans crap. And they did remember the Titans and throw those little flags, man. I mean, I'm just saying. I have no problem with flags, although we get into it now, and it is a version of flag football. But throw it when it happens. Don't wait till 30 seconds after you see the guy in the clear and then throw the flag. That's what pisses us off.
I got one more betting tip for the weekend for everybody.
Go ahead.
A little reminder that the Philadelphia Eagles are playing the Los Angeles Rams this year. It's the lowest first quarter season for Philadelphia in 55 years, and it's also the lowest scoring first quarter for the Rams in 47 years. The Phillies average 1.2 yards points per game in the first quarter, and the Chargers average 1.1 points.
You mean the Rams?
You mean the Rams?
The Rams, the first quarter this year. I don't know who to pick, but I'll tell you what, each of them have a hard time scoring in the first quarter, and it's historic.
I'm taking the over. It's indoors.
Kenny Thompson, thanks so much for joining the Jim Feist Show.
I appreciate it. Anytime I can be on the stage with the legend.
Thank you.
Jeff Whitelaw, thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Mr. Feist, what's your last thoughts before we're going to come back on Monday? We were going to do 2 shows today.
Well,
we said this, but now we're going to be here on Monday live with Ray Lamarck is going to be joining us again, and Doug Kassarian is going to be here as well with us.
Well,
It's Doug's birthday today, by the way.
Oh, perfect, thanks.
Get out
who's
there.
that?
Doug Kassarian.
Doug Kassarian, he's going to be with Monday with me.
Tomorrow's mine.
Facebook alerted me.
Oh, tomorrow's yours.
And tomorrow,
Mine was the other
mine.
day.
All right.
Make sure
we
you
go back
stick
to back.
around. We're going to give away wine, but what's your final thoughts?
My final thought is that we're talking NFL football. We have some other things that we should start to implement into the show. We got playoffs coming up, 12-team playoff in college football, which is very exciting. I mean, it's changed the whole game to be able to talk about 12 different teams and organizations and fan bases. And also we have college basketball,
Yeah.
and we have pro basketball, and Kenny and I were talking, where the hell did this kid, how does this kid drop to number 17 to the Lakers, and then he comes out and scores 37 the other night for the Lakers? It's pretty amazing.
And
You
this-
know basketball
yeah.
because you were damn good.
Yeah.
So I'll let you answer that
No, the
question.
crazy thing is that I know as nuts as it is because the Lakers used number 55 to grab Bronny, but trust me, they thought about the number 17, just getting him to make sure that they got him to have him with Dad. But Connect is the real deal. I mean, he really is, and he really blossomed at Tennessee his last year there. And when you have a kid 6'6", 6'7" that can shoot like that, he's ambidextrous. He's got good handles for a big guy. He's going to be a dynamite player down the line.
I think I read something about him. He was actually about 7 or 8 inches shorter, and then all of a sudden in 1 year he just sprouted like a weed.
Yep.
And I mean,
Yeah.
I think he transferred schools also at the same time. He ended up in Tennessee.
Yeah, it was a good move for him.
Monday we'll talk NFL, we'll talk NCAA playoffs, we'll talk some college basketball, maybe some pro basketball. We'll just hit them all on Monday. Join us Monday at noon here on the patio at Dom DeMarco's Pizzeria and Wine Bar, where the good times roll and the pizza or the wine flows. I'm thinking pizza because I'm getting
Yeah,
hungry.
we're getting pizza.
My name's Tommy Canale. We'll see you on Monday, everybody.